Well, the Springboks are in high spirits ahead of their clash against Argentina in the Castle Lager Rugby Championship later today. Los Pumas are the only other team in the running for the title with 2 rounds remaining. Now, the Boks have a task to secure a clean win today in order to get closer to their first Rugby Championship title since 2019. The Springboks currently hold an 8-point lead at the top of the standings over Argentina. Kickoff is at 11 p.m. South African time in the northern city of Santiago del Estero. Let's now have a chat with News 24 sports reporter as well as SABC sports commentator Khanyiso Tshwaku. Khanyiso, as always, thank you so much for your time. So, expectations ahead of tonight's clash between the reigning as well as unstoppable world champions, the Boks, and Argentina's Los Pumas, with South Africa having made those very notable 10 changes in the squad ahead of tonight's clash.
Look, the expectation will be high. Firstly, good afternoon. Quite a very chilly afternoon here. But look, the expectation is very high. It's very high based on the fact that the Boks have made changes, developed the squad, grown the squad, and continued winning. I mean, look, they won twice in Australia, beat New Zealand twice, putting themselves in a perfect position where they know that even if they don't win in Santiago del Estero later tonight, they still have an opportunity to win when they play again in Bombela next week. Ideally, judging from what the messaging has been from the team this week through the virtual press conferences, there is a need to ensure that they win and they win comfortably. Well, they don't actually win comfortably, they just need to win. Remember now, Argentina have to win both games by a bonus point. They need to win one game by bonus point and another one, in fact, they need 19 points, and they need to prevent the Springboks from getting any points to win the Rugby Championship. So, look, the expectation is there for the Boks to get the job done, having made 10 changes, having seen how making changes works. But I think Argentina is far stronger than Australia. If you remember that the Boks made a raft of changes against Australia and actually went through that game without conceding a try. So I think the different part is that this is a very strong Argentinian team with character, the Argentinian team that no longer plays with, they play with emotion, but they know how to channel their emotions into their tactics. So it's going to be a very, very interesting game. I think one factor will be how hot it is, I think, at kickoff, because the weather has been a bit of a factor that side. The forecast for this today in Santiago del Estero is 37 degrees. It is a 6 p.m. kickoff that side, which you think is far better than what South Africa generally experienced the travel that side when they play at 10 past 4, which is 10 past 9 South Africa time. So I think the 6 p.m. kickoff may still be very hot, but I think it will be much more comfortable for the South Africans.
And speaking of those conditions, Khanyiso, very tactical, right, is Rassie in resting the players like Veluru as well as Cheslin Colby among the 7 that he'll be resting. That is, of course, still sticking with his policy to give wider squad game time as well as introduce and expose the younger Boks to various play conditions as well as competition, which is quite great for the squad overall.
Yes, the thing is, it's one thing to develop a squad and lose. Now you have to rely on your main players to get the job done. However, though, it creates another quite delightful selection conundrum where regardless of who you play, you're still winning. So if you're able to mesh winning with development, it actually bodes well for the future, because you know that there will come a time of adversity. There will come a time when questions will be asked of the Springboks. You realize that the Boks are still in the first year of their 2027 Rugby World Cup cycle. And ideally, you really want things to come together towards the end of the cycle leading into the World Cup. Like the Boks got their timing spot on. End of 2022, leading into 2023, where you could see in the direction that they were heading, but everything came together during the World Cup. So ideally, that's how you want a cycle to go. However, though, Erasmus is aware of the fact that the current group of players does want the group to grow all together, which is why there is a gradual introduction of younger players. I mean, if you think about it, there's a player like John Klein, there's a player like Anthony Sneeman, who aren't actually playing rugby for the Boks. They're playing with their URC franchise, that being Leinster. That'll tell you of the depth that the Boks have at the moment, that they are without 2 players who are critical to their forward momentum leading into 2027. However, they have still been able to gather results. It's not to say that someone, Murat, who's captain for tonight, and Rowan Nokia are lesser players, but you realize that you've got two key locks who still are young enough to feature in the next World Cup, who aren't playing in this particular game. And that tells, and there's a Stephen Kitsoff who's got a long-term injury, but also when you look at the upside of injuries, that the player does get time to rest. So there are cons to growing players because you also need the results to show for that. But with the pro from Rice's perspective is that whoever he puts into his system, the team still keeps on winning. And that is probably the best environment in which to grow young players.
Now, Khanyiso, I mean, this has been another elusive title for the Boks since 2019, but what could be some potential upsets against the Boks by the currently very informed Pumas, as of course we chase to also maintain our top spot ranking?
I think the key part for the Boks is that whether they can sustain playing catch-up rugby is probably the most important question. They were never put in a position to do so by Australia because, frankly, Australia aren't in the grade of Australia. But in the two New Zealand tests, they had to fight back from deficits. So you did just 10 points and 9 points and 6 points, respectively, in those matches. The key part is that how do you now sustain that? And I think that's probably the one thing that you don't want when you're traveling, when you're playing in high heat, where you now need to expend your reserves significantly in order to gain the win and still need to travel back to Mbombela next week. Look, I mean, if you look at the players left behind, it's still 7, now 6. Because remember that Sasha Feinberg Ngomezulu is out with that knee up that will keep him away until probably the end of October. So you've got now 6 players who slot back in. But there are also players from this group will also still need to play. So there's also going to be that energy management and conserving that will need to be required for this game and the travel back to Mbombela for next week's test.
And in closing, Khanyiso, I mean, another battle coming up at 4 p.m. is the Currie Cup final. Sharks are up against the Lions at Ellis Park here in Johannesburg. What can we expect on that game? And do you think Johannesburgers will be able to actually brave today's icy weather and make it all the way to the stadium?
It's going to be interesting. It is a Currie Cup final, a tournament that, for obvious reasons, has lost its shine. It lost its shine as Super Rugby became clearly the main tournament. And I think now with URC being what it is, it's also Champions Cup / Challenge Cup that the South African franchise is playing. The tournament itself has dropped down to a significantly 4th-tier tournament. However, though, it's a trophy that needs to be won. With the fact that John Plumtree has been able to step back into the reins and realize that this is a trophy that they need to win. Because at the end of the day, you may look at the Currie Cup as a slightly Vodacom Cup-ish developmental tournament. It's a bit of silverware. And the only way coaches can sustain their staying power and positions is by winning silverware. So both teams under pressure. The Lions have overturned, especially Mziwa Kenkosi. 2 seasons ago, they could only win 1 out of 9 games. This season, only lost 1 out of their 9 games. So they've gotten an amazing turnaround under Ngosi. The Sharks started the season quite badly. Then they trusted their youngsters, and they still fielded a few of the youngsters for the final. So I think it's going to be quite a tactical and physical game, considering the weather. I think if it was a warm, dry day, I think it would have been a bit of a different story. But I think the conditions outside have leveled up the contest significantly.
Khanyiso, always great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Khanyiso Tshwaku, the senior sports reporter at News 24, as well as SABC sports commentator on the upcoming rugby clashes that are expected throughout today.